mean, they're all tools, right? So it's very normal for you to have like 7 or 8 versions of your deck, depending on how long the time you have, or depending on the audience that you're speaking to. You don't want to use your investor deck with like the general public. You don't want to use the general public deck with your investors. Pitch deck for your customers is very different. So you're going to have different messages for different audiences, and knowing the audience and the application of the tool is really important. And when you can get through that is good. You should nail your elevator pitch, because you just, like, you're going to a conference and you bump up against somebody and they're like, hey, what do? You need to be able to nail that, and nail it in a way that the person doesn't go, oh, that's nice, cool, nice job, right? You want them to go, really? How does that work? Tell me more. And even if they're not an awesome target for you, they might know somebody that is, and so the more you can capture their imagination, the better. So really nail your elevator pitch. Your elevator pitch is less than 60 seconds, 2 minutes does not count.
Okay.
30 seconds is even better.
So we start with the intro.
All right, okay, so typical pitch deck is gonna have 4 sections. The intro, so section 1 is the intro, section 2 is the demo, section 3 is all the business stuff, and section 4 is the landing. So the intro section, the whole goal of the intro section is to just get me into a lean forward motion. I want to be, you don't want me to start doing this. When you're talking to me, you're like telling me what's going on, and I've got my phone on the table, and then I'm like, what's that? My phone just buzzed. Right? You've lost me already. The intro section is to get me to go like this. I'm interested, right? Tell me more. You've got my attention. You've got less than 60 seconds to do that in. It's super hard. So when I talk to founders, I say, when you're preparing your deck, you're probably going to spend like 80% of your time getting that part right. If you get that part right, almost everything else becomes really easy, because I'm already like really excited, and everything that you say, I'm like, tell me more, tell me more. So spend most of your time getting that part right. The second section is the demo section, and this is where I find a lot of founders get it wrong. So a lot of times they will either have no slides on the demo of the product, or they will have maybe one slide that's a screenshot of the computer with the phone next to it showing you've got multiple versions or whatever. But that does not tell me anything about your product. So remember, I have heard your business thousands and thousands of times before. So I have a mental image of what your company, what your product does. The only way you're gonna break me out of that is by showing me with video or imagery what your product does that is different than everything else out there. So we saw earlier today, a guy, and he demonstrated, is he here today, the shopping cart?
Got it, Mark?
Is he here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So they demoed their shopping cart app, and I was like, well, how's that different than the 2,000 other shopping cart apps that I've seen? But it turns out they've got a really cool feature in it, which is an AI. Like, you can say, I want to make
spaghetti bolognese.
I want to make spaghetti bolognese, and the AI will come back and say, here's how you make it, here's all the ingredients, I'm going to add all this to your shopping cart, done. Oh, that's cool, I've never seen that before. So you should show me that, lead with that, lead what makes it different and unique relative to all the other products. Because as soon as he goes, we're a shopping cart company, I'm like, okay, I've seen that, why is that interesting? Oh no, they've got this amazing AI that does it, that's cool. Show me more. So figure out what it is about your product that makes your product different and unique, and demo that, right? And that is where you start to capture. So you've captured me in that intro, and now I'm leaning in even more, because you're showing me what's different about everything else that I've already seen. And then, again, it just all gets easier after that.
And before we get into section 3 and 4, I also wanted to get you to stress on the fact that within the intro and the demo, you're also covering points that people think they need slides on, right? Whether it's traction, or your unique value proposition, or your differentiation, right? Where you start to build a slide and you're like, this is why we are, as compared to threading it in with your narrative and building that captivation right from the start.
Yeah, so if you use your demo to me what if you have a really unique customer acquisition strategy, make that part of your demo. And then in the business section, you can talk about it again. But as much as you can weave the elements of your business into the demo, the better. So it's It's a little tricky to do. It takes a little navigating, but when you get it right, you can get it really right, and it's very awesome. And so that's what you're trying to do with your demo, is you're trying to set yourself above, head and shoulders above everybody else by demoing what makes you special. Your login page does not make you special. Your checkout page does not make you special unless that's what you do. It's something inside of that that makes you really different and unique. If you don't have the different and unique, you have to have one thing, and it's called traction. And you can demo that, right? And so if you have no traction and you have nothing special, you have a problem. So at least you have no problem with investors. So you can still grow your business and all that stuff. It's going to be harder to get investment capital.
So we've started with the intro, we have gone through the demo, and now we're going to go into part 3.
Yep, so section 3 is the business stuff. And this is the stuff that most people put most of their slides on, right? It's the market size slide, it's the business model slide, it's the team slide, it's the differentiation slide. Those are all really important slides, but if you get the other 2 sections right, they become much easier, because all you're actually doing is kind of reinforcing things that you've already said through the demo or through your intro. And so if you can do that well, it's awesome. We did spend some time today at the workshop talking about the market size slide. So I highly recommend a bottoms-up market approach from the top down. Already top down is a TAM, total addressable market. That's a bunch of BS. Nobody pays attention to that. I want to know how many total customers you are out there for you. I want to know what your average contract value is, or monthly value, or whatever, what you think the total value is per customer. I want to know what percentage of the market you think you're going to capture, and that's going to spit out a revenue number for me. And that helps me understand a bunch of things about you, not just about your business, but about you. So I want to know that this helps me see, like, how much homework have you done on how many customers there are out there, who your customers are, where you find them, how you reach them, what kinds of things that you're going to do to reach them. All that's boiled into that customer number, right? I want to know what your average annual contract value looks like. That's also going to tell me a bunch of information about you. How many assumptions you build, what your assumptions look like, what you're taking into consideration, how much testing you've done around pricing. There's a bunch buried in that number. I want to know what percentage of the market you think you're going to capture. That also tells me a bunch about you, right? It tells me how realistic you are being. Are you being really realistic? It also tells me how much room there might be to grow in the market. And then that's going to spit out a total revenue number, annual revenue number, and then I'm thinking about my fund and my fund size relative to that, also relative to the exits that have happened in the space. So now I start to go, is this company a good fit with me? So there's a bunch built in that, or TAM, it's like a totally useless number.
Yeah, and I think before you even start to look at what you've recommended, which is a bottoms-up approach, the general consensus is that you want to show that it's so big, that you want to show off, that the automatic response is to be bigger than it is, or even understand how much you're going to capture, because like you said in the workshop this morning, you're not doing the research to actually find out your entire addressable market. You're just putting it in Google and going, this is what Google is saying this market is worth, like X billion dollars. I'm going to get 0. whatever percent, and that's going to spit out an incredible return for you as an investor. And we forget that at the end of the day, investors are emotional beings as well. They're all human. And the more that you are able to hook them with their feeling that they're experiencing through what you are sharing with them, which is what you've said, 1, 2, 3, your intro, your demo, now your business, before you close, which is also to hook them at the end of the day, is to remember that you are pitching to people, and regardless of wherever they're coming from, you want to communicate your idea as effectively as possible, and that is also to ensure that you are telling as much of the truth as possible so you're able to follow through with whatever you're pitching.
Right, well I think that
now we think about closing. How do we close, and what are the do's and don'ts of ending strong?
there are only 2 main components in a close. Well, actually 2.5. So the half is just making sure that you finish strong. Like, finish confidently, finish like you know what you're doing, right? Just have a really strong landing. That's the half. The other 2 parts are, the first one is you always want to make sure that you're hitting me over the head with your key points. So I always tell founders, I'm like, write 1 or 2, what are the 1 or 2 things you want me to remember? Put it on a sticky note and stick it on the side of your computer, and then make sure you're repeating those two points 2 or 3 times in the deck. I'm only going to remember one or two things that you told me. Like, for instance, I remember the AI shopping cart guys. I'm going to remember them forever as the AI shopping cart guys. I don't remember anything else they said. I remember that. I'm going to remember that forever. I'm picking on him now.
You did it, guys.
He's over there giving me a thumbs up. He's like, you remember me. But like, what's the one or two things you want me to remember? And you can, there's a bunch of places you can say it. You can say it in the intro, and the demo, and the closing. You can say it in the intro, and the business stuff, and the closing. You can say it in the demo, and the business stuff, and the closing. You can say it 3 times, and if you do that, I will remember it, okay? And I'm only gonna remember one or two things, so pick them carefully and engineer them into the deck. So that's one part of your closing. The second part of your closing is always make a call to action. I don't care what situation you're in, you can always ask for something, right? Whether it's we're raising a round, we're looking for $5 million, are you interested? By the way, we're raising a round, we're looking for $5 million is not an ask. Are you interested is the ask. You always ask a question, because when you ask a question, then you engage their brains to respond. When you hear a question, it is an automatic response to come up with an answer. So don't make a statement and think that you've asked, right? Who's married? Anyone married? Right. So they're like, marriage. No, it's like, would you like to get married? There's a question. You always ask the question. So, are you interested enough to write a check? Are you interested enough to take the next step? What would the next step be? These are all questions, not raising $5 million. Okay. Let's just say it's not a fundraising situation. How about we are looking for a CTO? If you know anybody that you think would be interested in our type of business that's got CTO skills, we'd love an introduction. Or we are looking for beta testers. If you're interested in what we're doing, please come find me afterwards. I'd love to get you on board as a beta tester. Every single opportunity you're ever talking to anyone ever, you should always be making a call to action. You got that job when you became a founder. So those are the 2.5 parts of the closing. And what I hate first, because that was the last thing you asked, was we talked about this earlier, but like bullet points and complex charts and graphs. Remember, your job is to capture my imagination, is to capture my attention, is to get me engaged. Who has ever read bullet points that are interesting? I mean, let's be honest. You've never read an interesting bullet point in your whole entire life. Do not put bullet points or complex graphs or charts in your deck. They literally drain all of the energy out of everybody in the room and put everyone to sleep. Do not do that. I would say a big thing to take away is that we talked a little bit about this earlier too. The words that you say are the content that is coming out of your mouth is actually the smallest part of the message that they take away. It is everything in between. It is in your nonverbal communication. It is in your tone. It is in your enthusiasm. It is in the images that you show me, the design that you make, the creativity that you're putting into it. It is all of the non-content things. And so they always say the devil's in the details, right? This is why you can't just like put a deck together and have an investor meeting. Spend time crafting your message. Spend time, when you feel like you've got the message nailed, spend time getting the deck right. When you feel like you've got that nailed, spend time practicing it in front of an audience that can give you feedback. You want to get as much feedback as you can. Somebody telling you good job is useless information for you, right? So you're looking for constructive criticism on where people got bored, where they were confused, where they thought that you were bullshitting them, where they disbelieved what you said, where their mind wandered. These are all really powerful things that kind of information to you helps make you stronger. And the more of that information you gather, the better you will be at fundraising. And so that nonverbal part is pretty huge. And then the last thing, which is part of that, is just becoming an expert at EQ, right? Is the emotional intelligence side of fundraising. And as you get good at EQ, you get better at the nonverbal stuff. Those two things are a lovely partnership. But when you're looking at somebody, are they...
May I add 2 things that I took away from your workshop this morning?
Please.
One of them, Nicole stressed, is as much as your pitch and yourself is part of your whole, presentation, nailing, your top 5 most frequently asked questions so that you have strong responses to them is also part of your pitch. So making sure you're practicing them and you know how to answer them strongly, or you know where to direct them. And if you don't know them, saying, I don't know, and I will get back to you, and I will follow through is so important, because it sets you apart from the 98% of other founders that do not follow.
One question just to highlight through pre-seed to exit, how to get less diluted through the process?
Yeah. Okay, so the question was, how do you get less diluted through the process of investing from pre-seed? So are you asking from a founder perspective or from an investor perspective?
Founder.
Okay, so first of all, dilution is not bad. It is not bad. Dilution can be a very powerful tool as long as you are diluting to the right partners. Okay? So don't think about, actually, let me back up for a second. There's a wonderful study that came out of Harvard by a professor named Noam Wasserman. And he did this whole thing about why startups fail. And one of the, I think there were 5, and one of the reasons was because the founder wants to be king rather than rich. So you need to ask yourself a question: do I want to be king or do I want to be rich? And they are not the same thing. Sometimes they can be, but it's very rare. Very, very, very rare. So, as long as you are diluting by partners that are not, it's not their capital that's going to make your business successful. We talked about that already. It's their knowledge. It's their insight and input into you. It's their ability to help you break through your own ceilings. It is their network. It is all of those things that are going to help you. If you can get that, you should take that dilution all day long. All day long. Because I'd rather have 1% of a $5 billion company than 100% of a $100,000 company, okay? Unless you're the person that would rather have 100% of a $100,000 company, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just knowing that about yourself will help you go into the fundraising process more strategically. How much of do I want to be king? There's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't, okay? Being in charge of your own destiny and not having to report to people all day long, and like there's the simplicity of it, it's beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with that way of living. So please don't take for a second that it's negative. But knowing that about yourself will actually help you come up with a different strategy for financing your business rather than going after venture capital. Venture capital is squarely in the rich column, squarely. They will fire you if they don't think you're going to help them get rich. And so if you want to be king and they want to be rich, guess who loses? You, not them. You. Okay. Yeah. So my point is that being strategic about who you fundraise from will help you feel much better about that dilution. That's thing 1. Thing 2 is never, is be careful about getting over your skis. What I mean by that is all founders want to go out and raise as much money for as little equity as possible, right? The problem with that is that looks like a large valuation for you. You will eventually have to pay that. That valuation has to eventually be worth it. So whether you pay it in the next round or the next round or the next round, it will eventually come true. It is not good for you to raise large rounds at large valuations, because then you have a very small amount of time in order to make up the traction to make your business worth it. But yet all founders are suckered in by that. These guys offered me more money and a higher valuation. I'm going to take that. Wrong. That is so wrong. I would much rather you take less money and a lower valuation that's more in line with the actual business where you are today or where you can get to before the next round. That is a thing that will help your dilution, okay? Because if you get in front of yourself in terms of valuation, and most founders do, you get something lovely called a down round. And so you think you got diluted, you didn't get diluted in that round. Guess what? You're gonna get way diluted in the down round. And then maybe you don't even have a job anymore, and that thing that you spent all these years building, like they get rid of you because you couldn't make it happen. So get as much progress as you can on as little money as you can, and that will help you keep your valuation to a reasonable place And really, the other thing is just really focus on profitability. Like every single dollar should be, how does this help me earn the next dollar?
What you would advise for really heavy projects with big scientific background, which difficult to explain to normal people? So how to properly form this message?
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually a loaded question. So, oh my God, I feel like how much time we have. Okay, so quickly on
negative minutes.
so quickly on that. If the average investor, if it's highly technical, the average investor is not going to invest in it, probably. It is okay that the average investor doesn't get what you do. Because guess what happens if I get curious about what you do? I'm gonna sit down, we're gonna have a bunch of meetings, I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions, and I'm gonna educate myself, and I'm never gonna invest. Because it's too technical for me, okay? So it is okay that there are some people that don't get what you do. That is all right. Be okay with that. If you find that you need to communicate to those people, put together a metaphor. Like, so I had a company, this was a long time ago, but I had a company, and they created a SDK that sat inside of mobile software that recorded every touch, every swipe, every interaction that a customer had with the phone, okay? But when they tried to describe it to people, the investors got really confused. They didn't understand. And so they created this metaphor around recording the stars and movements in the sky that made it really easy for investors to understand, but didn't dive into the technical capabilities, okay? When they tried to dive into the technical capabilities, people's eyes glazed over, nobody got it. But everybody wanted to take the meeting because it was like, it was cool. And so my point is you try to use a metaphor or tell a story to communicate it to the average person, but don't make it too interesting because you don't want to take meetings with those people. You don't want to take meetings with those people because they're not going to invest. So it's okay that you have a technical product, and it's okay that you speak technically. What's not okay is that you then target a bunch of non-technical investors. So go out and put your pipeline together and make sure you're targeting that type of investors that get what you do. And you'll figure out pretty fast whether they get it or not, right? And the ones that get it, you just hold on to it tight. So, but don't worry about alienating people. So this is something a lot of founders don't get. I have to take every meeting. You don't have to take every meeting. Now you wanna like be gracious, because that investor might know somebody that would be a good fit for you. So you don't want to be like, you're not a good fit, I'm not meeting with you. But it's okay to like not take every meeting, and it's okay to be a little bit alienating because you don't want a lot of people just educating themselves on your time.